I think you deserve help. I think your circumstances are unjust and that you are worthy of sympathy. But you should want to fix your life, not burn the world down out of spite. I get it. Your souls are so whipped raw with rejection and failure that you feel transgression and provocation are all that you're capable of. This is my open letter to the Groypers from a Jewish woman. And I'm doing this because I refuse to abandon you. Yes, you, my fellow citizens who are clearly suffering. But let's be quite clear about something to start, okay? Nick Fuentes is a liar. But like all the greatest lies, it starts with truth. If you are one of Fuentes' followers, I'm betting the thing that hooked you wasn't only the anti-Jewish message. I bet you found him funny, which he is. And I bet he said something that resonated with you and felt true to your experience. And I'm not trying to take that away from you. In fact, the right gains nothing by denying the true parts of Nick's message, okay? We look unreasonable and out of touch and heartless. So, Groypers, I agree with you. You are suffering, and that deserves attention, especially if you're young. I also agree. It's not your fault that you couldn't control the fact that you were born in this era, in an era when the cost of living has ballooned, when the older generations have turned the housing market into essentially a crypto scam, and when college degrees are so oversupplied and practically worthless while also being vastly overpriced. So you're right to look at the past and sense that this is not normal. And I mean, it used to be that men could have entirely secret second families on a teacher's salary. And now men can't even have main families. And even if they could, what women are you going to have it with? Someone you don't want, or more likely, someone that all of society is saying will never want you. So I hear and I agree with you when you ask how it can be justice that you live in a society where the culture is rigged against your ability to find love or human connection, and the economy is rigged against your ability to own a house or a car or assets of any kind short of a junk meme coin. You're right. You're right. That is not justice. And you are right to want answers as to how it became this way and who is responsible for this. And what's more, you're right that right now, no one will come to save you. But by the way, that includes Nick Fuentes and sympathizers like Tucker Carlson. I even think you are correct about the fact that America's politics have ceased to be responsible to its people, right? Like, it is clearly rigged in favor of the wealthy and the old and the corporate. So why is it this way? Well, obviously, because money controls politics more than votes do. What that means is that DC is corrupt. And then, within all of this, you look at the Jews, and we don't seem to have these problems. Actually, people seem to be listening to us less and less these days, but you can't help noticing that we at least have the right phone numbers to call, and you don't. So let's talk about what you clearly believe, that the Jews control everything. Okay, firstly, if that were true, we would have no reason to care or worry about what you think at all, okay? Secondly, Zoran Mamdani would not be the next mayor of New York City. Thirdly, there would be no movement to get rid of test scores in secondary education. Fourth, we would be playing on NBA teams instead of owning them. And finally, it would always be Short King Summer, okay? You know what I'm talking about. So now you have presumably been educated on John Mearsheimer and Stephen Walt's book, The Israel Lobby. And you think that this book proves that we control everything. Actually, all it proves is that the only reason we have any power at all is because to the extent that the Israel Lobby exists, it is a very cheap date compared to the other interests in Washington. Okay? Right? Let's do the math here. Seriously. Aid to Israel amounts to about roughly 0.05% of the federal budget. Compare that to the federally directed largesse enjoyed by the automotive industry or the pharmaceutical lobby or the agricultural lobby or the tech lobby, and you'll see that you're complaining about the government handing out less than a penny to one group while it shovels out $100 bills to everyone else. And that reason is exactly why all these people love directing your attention to Israel, because it distracts you from caring about the issues that might compromise their lobbying money or do literally anything to stop Washingtonian corruption. They think you're too stupid to actually do the math. Stop falling for it. If you want to see who's getting the money that could sponsor a new industrial policy, we're not the droids you're looking for. There is a whole universe of subsidies and unfair regulations and just other nakedly irrational, heartless policies holding back the kind of unifying and populist economic policy that I know you want. So if foreign aid to Israel were stopped, which I think it should be, that money would just go straight into increasing what those other more powerful lobbies get. I could see the fire you hold in your hearts for us. And I humbly suggest that you try training it on the people who are actually regulating your future out of existence to preserve their present. And once you've eliminated that, if Israel then becomes the biggest subsidy on the books, then we could talk. Okay? But even with all that, I understand your resentment of Israel. I do. You look at Israeli society with its optimistic young people and ballooning birth rates and universal military service, and some part of you stirs with the awful thought that all of it exists at your expense because of the foreign aid that we give to Israel. I won't call you anti-Semitic for thinking that. Instead, I'll just ask you this. Say it's true that foreign aid made Israel so prosperous. Well, we spend a fortune on other nations, and they don't look like Israel. Why? Could it be because culture and values play a part too? And then perhaps that's also part of the problem for you. You look at Jewish Americans and how much we help each other, how our family units are largely intact, and how we love life. We love life. And you want that. But more than that, you feel deliberately excluded from it. So much so, actually, that when Nick Fuentes comes along with his fake Talmud quotes and tells you that that is actually what is happening, you choose to believe him. Let me be clear. We do not want to succeed at your expense. I want you to have everything that young people in Israel have. That's why I'm recording this. This is not for my own sake. It's for yours. Because in hating us, you cut off your ability to gain wisdom and help from the one people who've been where you are now, again and again, for thousands of years. You think you are our enemies? Bubala, after the past 10 years of woke governance, you are us. You see, once I got myself to ignore all the Jew hate in your rhetoric, I actually noticed a couple of strange things about the way you talk. Firstly, when you talk about Hitler, you always end up describing someone else. And secondly, when you talk about your traits that make you feel alienated from modern society, you always cite traits that historically have been associated with Jews. So first, let's talk about how you see Hitler. Let's talk about how you think of Adolf Hitler? Let's examine what you believe he did, okay? So first, you think he reclaimed the land, which was his people's ancestral birthright. Second, that he saved them from laboring under the rule of malicious foreign powers. 3, that he mercilessly devastated their enemies in pursuit of regaining his people's sovereignty. And 4th, he reunited his entire civilization under one flag and stood up against the great foreign threat that sought to assimilate them. You know what's weird about all of these descriptions? They don't fit the historical Adolf Hitler at all. They sound like you've spliced multiple legendary figures from Jewish history together into one person. Claiming land as a divine birthright sounds a lot less like Lebensraum than like our shared forefather Abraham. Saving an oppressed people from laboring in bondage and mercilessly forcing their enemies to grant them sovereignty? That's more like Moses than Operation Barbarossa. Reuniting an entire civilization against assimilation and foreign false gods. That's not what the Führer did, but that is what the Messiah will do. So in other words, even as you poach the aesthetics and the talking points of mid-20th century fascism, it is obvious that what you like about it is the opposite of what actual fascists liked about it. You know, I know that some of you love quoting the Joker, so let me just beg you right now also. Don't talk like one of them. You're not, even if you think you'd like to be. You know something else? I see how you talk about women. Or really, how you talk about why you struggle to relate to us. You say you're too disagreeable, too much of an outsider, too concerned with reason and truth, and too far from society's Chad physical ideal to be attractive in spite of all these other traits. Now, again, these are all complaints which Jewish men in particular are very familiar with, because this is historically how they've been categorized. I mean, even the figure you named yourselves for, the Groyper frog, he looks like an anti-Semitic caricature. He's fat and smug, and his hands are clasped in a gesture that implies like scheming. It's that scheming look. You see yourselves as a persecuted minority, possessed of a hidden and esoteric knowledge that got you censored or exiled everywhere, and now you could only rely on in-group solidarity and your own moral exceptionalism. You tell yourselves that you are perpetual outsiders who somehow still nonetheless secretly wield massive influence over the people who currently rule America. Do I even have to point out the parallels at this point? The truth is, you are as much victims of anti-Semitism as we are. The very traits that make you feel alienated from mainstream society are traits that society still associates with us. They actually never got over associating these traits with us, even with this fig leaf of acceptance they had ever since the Holocaust. But you say to me now, you hear all of this, and you might say, if we have so much in common, then why do the Jews seem to hate your heroes like Nick Fuentes? And why do your heroes tell you to hate us? Well, the first answer is very easy. It's because we're easy targets. It's very obvious. Just like you were easy targets for the woke left. People keep calling you the woke right, and you hate that. Rightly so, because you saw, and correctly, that for all their moral posturing, woke people were cowards who punch down on people who can't hit back. And you, on the other hand, you see yourselves as punching up. You're wrong. You're punching sideways at the other people who have always been the acceptable scapegoat. You think that sounding like a pro-Palestinian demonstrator will win you sympathy? It won't. Woke leftism is a big club, and neither you nor we are in it. Now, of course, they won't object if you do try to sound like them. But it's not because they want your support. It's because they would love it if you, you, the supposedly evil, straight, white, cis males that they loathe, if you made yourselves as impotent and angry and incapable of accepting help as the Palestinians. That would vindicate everyone on both sides of the aisle that wants to marginalize you. Every boomer rant about how entitled and how unworthy of the culture that they supposedly built and how anti-American you are, it would all look true. The left went out of their way to provoke and harass and persecute you, all in the hopes that you would lash out and make their persecution look justified. I get it. I am a Jew. We've been there, okay? So back to the question of why do we attack Nick then? Well, why did you attack Robin DiAngelo? Why did you attack Ibram X. Kendi? Yes, obviously, because they were scapegoating you and they were putting you in danger of not having the life you wanted. And if you could have blacklisted them from all polite politics, be honest, you would have. But more than that, you knew they were frauds. You knew that they were liars and grifters. And you knew that people who might be attracted to the emotional part of their message, the part that actually held the truth, that those people deserved better. Because deep down, you knew how they felt. But that's how we feel about you. We, the Jewish people. We want you to have better. And not all of us, I'll admit. There are assholes in the Jewish community, just like there are anywhere. But there are also many of us who have been where you are and want to help you. And some of you, some of you were so fierce about protecting the gaming community or any of a million other subcultures that came under attack from the woke left because you needed a place where you weren't persecuted. So do we. That's why we care about Israel, among many other reasons. And for some of you, I know Nick's fan base provides that. But you deserve better. I want you to find a community where you can do more than lick your wounds. I want you to find one where you could be lifted up, loved, and accepted. We made one for ourselves, and we can teach you how. All you have to do is not hate us. Now, perhaps you think I'm only saying this about you because you think I'm afraid of you. Which would be, please. I'm more afraid for you than I'm afraid for myself. People like me have survived thousands of years. My people have survived thousands of years of being hated. We're used to it, honey. But look at history. Blaming the Jews never turns out well. It is always, every time, without fail, a precursor to civilizational decline. And if this is what you're resorting to, then what does it say about your future? It's very easy to blame us, if only because our last names are very distinctive, we're very easy to trace. But so are the names of Irish people. They're also at the top of many elite institutions. They're responsible for a lot of the policies you don't like, very much including social media censorship and banking. But we're not seriously going to start debating the Shamrock question or challenge the existence of Ireland. Or could we all just admit now? Can we finally just admit that leftism exists everywhere? That no phenotype, no peoplehood, no nation is immune to leftism? Because contrary to what Nick tells you, there's no reason we can't be allies. Actually, we should be. Because the left rightly sees both you and the Jewish community as obstacles to their gay race communism. And no offense, but they see us as a much, much, much bigger obstacle than you. That's why they rage so much about Palestine. They rage so much more about that than they do about you. Why do you think that is? And I'm not stupid. I know we could use all the help we could get. But it's more than that. I genuinely feel sorry for you. Not because I'm Jewish, but because I too am young. I know that people our age get a raw deal just as much as you do. And I love your passion for fixing that, your merciless focus on justice, even your weaponized autism. But you are making young people look terrible and unworthy of help. You're ignoring the one model, the Israeli one, that has been proven to work. Now, I can't speak for every Jew, nor I want to, by the way. But I think you deserve help. I think your circumstances are unjust and that you are worthy of sympathy. But you should want to fix your life, not burn the world down out of spite. I get it. Your souls are so whipped raw with rejection and failure that you feel transgression and provocation are all that you're capable of. Nick wants you to stay that way. That's why he never gives you any solutions that have a prayer in hell of succeeding. Because that keeps you watching. It keeps the algorithm happy. He has no incentive to actually fix your life. And he has every incentive to keep you constantly frustrated and angry and tuned in. His victory is not your victory. Look at how he reacts to your super chats. He hates you. And he will forget about you the instant there's an easier way to be famous. And you deserve better than that.